it could be attributed to that, but where I knew what the echoes were and the repeat of the echo, and you could hear in that beginning just the overlapping the shots. And it wasn't long. It was like maybe 5 or 6 overlapping on another one. And so to me that's what made me feel like there was more than one shooter.
Hard to believe it, but it is a Friday, and this week has flown by for obvious reasons, trying to wrap our head around the Las Vegas massacre, all of the fake news, all of the politicization, all of the narratives that just don't add up. Welcome to the War Room. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer, warroom.show for all of our content. At War Room Show on Twitter is where you can find us, and we are live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. Central Time. So I've got stacks and stacks of news, updates on the Vegas shooting. We've got another sexual assault charges being waged in Hollywood, and then just scores of other news. Before we get to any of that today, we are joined by an eyewitness to the Vegas shooting. Truly a miracle that people were able to survive. We're glad that he was able to survive and join us today. He has chosen to remain anonymous, but we will call him David. So I want to ask him what he thinks happened based on what I've seen. And David, it sounds to me, based on your eyewitness account, you pretty much agree with the other eyewitness accounts and the research that suggests that there were multiple shooters that night.
It certainly sounded like it in the very beginning, that first 2 or 3 minutes, that, there was gunfire in different areas. The first round, while it was on when the music was going, it sounded like it was in a different place. And then the later rounds, in the second, third, and maybe the fourth volley, some of those were overlapping. And, there was a lot of echoes in there, so I could be wrong. And I've never heard gunshot coming over my head. I've shot a lot of guns, but I've never been shot at. So it's a completely different sound when you hear that bullet break the sound barrier coming at you. But I definitely heard overlapping, and I heard bullets go in different directions. I mean, you could hear going away. You don't hear the bullet, but the shot, when it's not pointed at you, you don't hear the crack you hear when it's coming your direction. When it's pointed somewhere else, it's going, you think it's going a different direction. Anyway, in the first 2 or 3 volleys, and I've asked other people that were with us there, and they felt like in the first 2 or 3 volleys, it was like a gang shootout because it was overlapping fire. And it may have just been that second and third volley, but they were shorter. And then you started hitting the 100-round volleys or 50 to 100 rounds, whatever it was. They were long. I lost track. It certainly wasn't a 30-round mag coming at us. So that was the part that led me to believe that there was more than one shooter. And when you're leaving, when we, after the shooting was over, and we were, it was probably about the 12th or 13th minute was when we made it out the backside of the venue. Most of the people who were shot are in that front side. We didn't see them. We went under a bunch of bleachers and then came around the back bleachers and then went out the side opposite from the strip side. I think it's Mandalay Bay Drive that wraps around the backside as well. When we went out we're hearing people yell, "There's other shooters. There's a shooter on Luxor. There's a shooter on Tropicana." And, granted, it's bedlam and people are in shock. And as we were, everybody was, everybody except the former the active duty and the former military who obviously dealt with this. Those guys were doing a whole different reaction than the majority of people who were there. I mean, but you're hearing all of these people just, there's a shooter over there, a shooter over there. You don't know what to believe at that point once the main shooter stopped from Mandalay.
Now, you said that you heard shots coming from different directions. So I wanted to kind of pontificate on that a little bit. Obviously, we saw that there were 2 shooting galleries set up in the hotel room. But are you saying not just from those 2 different shooting galleries potentially, but 2 different areas in general of the venue?
No, I don't know about the backside. I heard somebody say there was a shooter from Tropicana, and then I heard one of the callers has said that. I never heard that shot where we were. We were in the front we were catty corner, as close as you can get to the actual entrance at Mandalay Bay and the Strip, without being where the policemen were hiding behind that masonry wall. So we were like 20 yards behind them, 20, 30, maybe, 60 feet behind them, behind trailers. And in the beginning, it's the shots sounded lower. They didn't sound like they were coming from above. And I don't know if I could chalk that up to, the fact that you've got all these hard surfaces that the bullets are the shots are ricocheting or echoing off of, not ricocheting, but the sound is echoing off of. It could be attributed to that, but where I knew what the echoes were and the repeat of the echo, and you could hear in that beginning just the overlapping the shots. And it wasn't long. It was like, maybe 5 or 6 overlapping on another one. And so to me, that's what made me feel like there was more than one shooter. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I mean, I've never been shot at before, but it sure sounded like there were multiple shooters.
And you're also saying that it sounded like it was coming from closer than 32 stories up at Mandalay Bay from where you were at, which again, to me, lines up with some of the audio that we've heard from the event, where it does sound like there's gunfire, maybe not necessarily on the ground, but certainly closer to ground level than the 32nd floor.
Yeah, if you look at the way Mandalay Bay, to get into their entrance, you go up probably 20 feet off the street, something like that. I think it rises up into the Mandalay Bay, their entrance. And my first reaction was it was coming from there. And, there's a shootout right in the entrance in that main area on the corner of their corner of Mandalay Bay and the Strip. But then it became very apparent that ended up being one shooter going from, one shooter coming from above. But when we ran, about 7 minutes in, we left where the position we were at, and we went underneath the lounge and the bleachers for the Neon Lounge. They called it. It was the VIP section where that tent was over that lounge area. We ran underneath there, and we kept moving because you're not sure if they're shooting in from street level or where exactly it was coming from. Even though that they were shooting out of that 32nd floor, I still think there's some shots. It still sounds like it's from a lower.
Guys, pull that map up again real quick, because I want to ask our eyewitness one more time or another question before we get him off. Now, you mentioned when you were on with Alex Jones that there was a clear concentrated area that looked like it took the brunt of the fire to start, because that's where you saw most of the bodies. Can you point to us exactly where that area is at? Yeah,
that's a different layout, but the stage is probably basically where it is. But the bleachers if you're looking at the stage, the bleachers to the right aren't there. What's about 40 yards back, closer to Las Vegas Boulevard, was the VIP section, and there were bleachers about 15 rows of seats. Yeah, that's probably. And then behind the bleachers there was a lounge area, and it probably went 70 yards down the Strip to where that circular round area, that half circle is, right on the Boulevard, Las Vegas Boulevard. So yeah, I mean, I brought one of the maps. I don't know. I think it's probably still in there.
But you're saying between that area and that rounded area next to the 200 feet took the brunt of the fire, you think?
Yeah. So what it looked like if you look at one of the shots where they blurred out the people, the victims that were laying down, that shot was from the middle of the arena, approximately right out in front of the main stage, looking back towards the VIP section, and where they blurred out the people. That shot was from looking basically from somewhere in front of the stage, kind of towards Luxor, to the right side of Luxor is where that shot was. That section in front of the stage, they had a catwalk, and then they had their equipment lines run, and they had barriers blocking people from crossing from right side of stage to the left side in the front of the stage. And that right side looking at the stage between the VIP and that block where the sound guys were in the middle of about 50 yards out, probably took the brunt of all the shots that I saw from that photo.
Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine. If you're interested in healthy thyroid, if you're interested in well-being, if you're interested in having a higher IQ, which this has been linked to, get your powerful Survival Shield X2 at InfoWarsStore.com.